most influential politicians in the last century, Dick Cheney, has died at 84, and he spent some time in Peoria. In 1992, Cheney spoke at the Peoria World Affairs Council's annual event. Just after the fall of the Soviet Union and the Persian Gulf War, many were unsure of America's role going forward globally. Angela Weck, the executive director of PWAC, attended this event. She remembers the then Secretary of Defense arguing for America to maintain a position of authority, always leading with soft diplomacy. While there was some pushback at his presence, she says he politely answered all questions. Even though it might seem odd for a high-ranking official to brief Peorians, Weck explained that Cheney knew its importance.
I think he came because Bob Michael told him that the World Affairs Councils, and there's more than just Peoria, but that the World Affairs Councils help average American citizens understand that what happens in the world affects us locally. And I think he understood that that was important for the success of the United States in the world.
Weck agreed that Peoria's international efforts through business and education are a powerful extension of soft diplomacy. Coming up tonight at 10, we look more into Cheney's connection to Peoria, including his close relationship to Bob Michael.